Israel's caretaker Prime Minister Yair Lapid has met French President Emmanuel Macron during his maiden foreign trip to Paris. Macron received Lapid at the Élysée Presidential Palace, where the leaders embraced each other and waved at the cameras. The two leaders then had a one-to-one conversation. During the meeting, the French president pressed for talks with Palestinians and added that the negotiations on reviving 2015 nuclear deal between world powers and Iran needed to succeed.
Il n'y a pas d'alternative à une reprise du dialogue politique entre les Israéliens et les Palestiniens. Je sais combien vous pouvez marquer l'histoire en relançant un processus en panne depuis trop longtemps. Je sais les difficultés, je n'ignore pas les obstacles. Je sais aussi tous les raccourcis qui sont parfois faits. Mais je sais d'expérience, et je peux en témoigner, que vous avez l'étoffe de celui qui peut relever ce défi.
Macron's remarks came after Lapid urged the world to respond to Iran's violations of 2015 nuclear deal. He further urged the French president to revisit a 2018 proposal for a new Iran nuclear deal, saying that the current diplomatic stalemate threatened a Middle East arms race. He also warned Iran-backed Hezbollah group against its recent drone strikes in the country prior to his meeting with the French president.
It's also important that the international community know that with regard to Iran's nuclear issue, the Israeli society stands together as one, in one unified position presented to the international community. We will also discuss, of course, what happened recently in front of Lebanon's shores. There were repeated attacks on Israeli gas rigs. Israel will not accept such kind of attacks on its sovereignty, and anyone doing it should know that they are taking an unnecessary risk. Lebanon's government must curb such attacks by Hezbollah, or else we shall be forced to do so.
Lapid's stern warning came after Lebanon's Hezbollah movement launched 3 drones towards an offshore gas field in the eastern Mediterranean. Condemning the attack, Lapid said Hezbollah is continuing on the path of terrorism and is hurting Lebanon's ability to reach an agreement on a maritime border. Israel and Lebanon resumed negotiations on their maritime border in 2020, though Karish gas field sits outside of the disputed area and is marked as Israeli on previous United Nations maps. The US-backed talks have been stalled by Beirut's demands that the United Nations maps must be modified. The attack by Hezbollah came after Lebanon rejected Israel's claim of a Karish gas field. Israel has been firmly opposing the international efforts to revive a nuclear accord with Iran, as Israeli officials fear that giving Iran sanctions relief in exchange of curbs on its nuclear program could allow Tehran to boost funding to Hezbollah. And for more on this, our correspondent Jody Cohen has sent us a report from Hazliya.
While it's too early to say if the meetings will have any impact on the Iran nuclear deal negotiations or on negotiations between Israel and Lebanon, with which France has strong relations, the trip will be viewed as a personal coup for Lapid with the upcoming Israeli elections, with Macron saying that he thinks the people of Israel are lucky to have Lapid as head of the government. Whether or not the people agree, we'll find out in November. This is Jody Cohen for WION World is One.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.